All right. So on Netflix, there is a Voltron show that is made by DreamWorks. Have you watched that show at all?
No.
No? It's pretty good. It's actually fairly decent. If you grew up watching the original Voltron like I did, it's actually I think it's better. It's much better. It gives a modern take on it. Also, Stephen Yun, who played Glenn in Walking Dead, actually does a voice on that. So that may be a reason for you to watch it on its own. But
Suck watch another one of my favorite characters die.
oh gosh,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. So it looks like they're making a VR game based on this version of Voltron called Voltron VR Chronicles. It looks like it's going to be episodic, and it's pretty much it's pretty neat because it looks like it's got a cel shaded look to it. It's a cockpit game where you're, of course, piloting one of the 5 lions, and you're in space and you're shooting stuff up. Which I feel these types of games will work for VR. And we've talked about VR before. Neither one of us, would it be fair to say that neither one of us is all that impressed with VR?
I've never actually played a VR game, so I don't want to say for sure. I'm sure I have said before, but let's just go ahead and put it on record that I have never played a VR game, so I feel like anything I say isn't super credible.
You're unreliable, sir.
Exactly.
Yes. So I've said on the podcast that VR hasn't really done something to the point where it's going to become as popular as, like, say, console gaming. But I feel like licensed properties like these will definitely pull people in. And with licenses, it's this ongoing meme with video games that license games like movie games based on movies, which thankfully we've kind of seen die off a little bit, which is good. So hopefully that means people aren't buying them as much, and then studios won't think that it's a good idea. When you have a licensed property, typically the developer either has a limited amount of time. They can't really develop the game and put everything that they want in the game or polish it up that much before they have to deliver it, because it's licensed and whoever they licensed it from want it out at a certain date. So sometimes licensed games can kind of fall into this horrible abyss of suckitude. And a lot of people will say, or a lot of reviewers will say, oh, this could have been so good. It has some good ideas, but it's just a bunch of wasted potential. So licensed games can get dicey, but at the same time, they typically sell well just because people are familiar with that property. They sell better than original IPs, I would say, in general. So something like this, I think, has the potential to pull people in to VR. And by the way, this is going to be launching on PlayStation VR. So I'd say that's probably the more popular option at this point in time. I mean, if you have an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, you're probably like all into VR. You have a room in your house probably dedicated to this kind of stuff. You're probably a Twitch streamer also. And so you're probably already doing that. So this game isn't really for that person. I feel like this game really is for someone who wants to play a game in VR and have it actually work, And there have been games so far about cockpit games being out in space. I think there's one called Valkyrie out that kind of looks like this style. You don't know. You don't know anything, Matt. Nothing. He's here for moral support. But the I think this could actually start, and other games I think other games need to consider pulling in a license to pull in gamers. It's kind of like the icing on the cake that really can pull someone in. So what are your thoughts about VR and how it can actually grow as a part of gaming? You think that would be a good idea, or do you have some other ideas?
I think cockpit style games would be a good area for VR to go ahead and go down. I think whenever we do end up talking about VR, I always bring up horror, and it's like, I still think that's the best spot for VR to play around in, just because people who are into horror games, you know, like, they want to be scared, because not a lot of things scare them, or they get scared easily, but they like the feeling of being scared, so they just play horror games like that. Mm-hmm. So just making it as immersive as, yeah, making it as immersive as you possibly can for someone who's like that is just good. Also, cockpit gaming used to be pretty big back in like the 90s and early 2000s. Like, people would go to like arcades and play like cockpit style games. Or I remember there being a game where there was like this headset where like you like put it on, you have like two little controllers, and you like fire. I forget what it was called. It was like a yellow and black arcade game. I forget the name, but I thought it was pretty cool playing something like that. And
I like the whole idea of, I still think on-rail shooters are a lot of fun, whether it be House of the Dead. Could you imagine playing House of the Dead in VR?
That'd be pretty fun.
That would be pretty fun. If you could somehow make it 2-player and have a system support, you know, two VR headsets, maybe not this generation of hardware, but maybe the next generation.
Maybe Star Fox.
Yes. I definitely think Star Fox would work in VR.
Star Fox and F-Zero. Please, some type of racing games would be really fun like that too.
Oh yeah. Anytime you're sitting down and you're sitting down and you're not expected to really be walking, because I still think that as cool as Resident Evil 7 probably is in VR, because you're never going to convince me to play that game in VR. No. But as cool as that must have been in VR, I would think it'd be just kind of weird to be able to look around, but you have to move forward with the controller because you're walking. I think games where you're naturally in a sitting position would do the best to sell that immersiveness. And any game where you're sitting in a vehicle, could you imagine a Gundam game done well when you're in a cockpit?
That'd be pretty cool. Transformers.
But you're not in a cockpit. Transformers. But I still think licensed games that are that big are definitely what's needed to like pull in the youngsters.
Yo, someone make a Gurren Lagann game.
Oh my goodness!
Please,
with all the humor and with all the dramatics tied into it, that would be.
I want to feel as empowered as Simone with roll fight the power playing in the background.
You're making me want to watch it.
It's such a Gundam mech games.
We need a Gurren Lagann game. Period.
It's too late.
No, it's not. I don't think so.
I think the last thing they did with it was they made that like 2-hour special of like I don't know if they delve into the adult saga, but I know
there's more Gurren Lagann. You're
no,
telling
they
me?
did. They made a movie that basically
Continues it.
No, it like
condensed
everything into like a movie, and it went through like childhood Simone all the way to them fighting the anti-spiral. And the anti-spiral fight is really, really cool.
I need to look that up then. So that would be a good VR game.
That'd be really fun.
I think in the past, the opinions I have expressed have been probably overtly negative. And that's just because VR hasn't really sold me on stuff. But I think if projects like these with Voltron are going to be happening, I think that that's going to help convince people like me, like, okay, maybe there is a future in this. And it's not just a fad like 3D gaming or 3D movies were, which I called, by the way. And even people that were like avid moviegoers were like, haven't you seen Avatar? And I was like, no, I haven't seen Avatar. I've seen other movies in theater. They're like, oh, but that movie, oh, it's so good looking in 3D. Okay, be that as it may, I still think 3D is distracting, or you don't even notice it. So
I already wear glasses, so I have to wear glasses on glasses, which is always annoying.
And I think even I think PlayStation VR may even be in 3D.
I do remember some games. I think one of the Sly Cooper games did like there were some parts of the game that you could like switch to 3D for.
Earth Defense Force, I think, if you take out the walking element and just do like jumping and onto buildings and stuff, I think those would make a good game, good VR game. So yeah, more ideas like this, and you'll start to impress me.